Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next edition of Five Questions. I'm Sarah Downey, and I'm the President and CEO of the Michael Garron Hospital. And today, I thought we'd profile a hospital emergency command center and how we're operating during COVID-19. And today, I have four special guests who will be taking my questions and helping you to understand hospital operations during this really unusual time. So let me start with my first question, which is to Kevin Edmondson, who's the director of the emergency department, complex continuing care on usual days, but he's also our resident emergency preparedness expert. Welcome, Kevin. Can you tell me what is a command center and what is your role in supporting this function?
Thanks, Sarah. So I've played a coordinating role with the other individuals that are on the call with us. So we have with us Kelly Anderson, who's normally the accreditation lead for the hospital, Matt Hyginus, who's an improvement analyst, part of our OpEx team, and Lori Bourne, who's the director of quality, operational excellence, and innovation. So the four of us have kind of played a coordinating role in terms of ensuring the organization has a functioning command center and continuing to iterate the process of the command center throughout this pandemic. A hospital command center is a piece of the hospital's disaster response system, specifically our pandemic response right now. And so at MGH, we have lots of plans that support emergency preparedness, and these plans leverage the incident management structure, incident management system. IMS is a standardized approach to emergency management and used throughout the world. We also have a pandemic plan. So our pandemic plan has 12 chapters and outlines the many components of the hospital's pandemic response, from redeployment to Hawk Health to labs and the emergency department. Our pandemic plan outlines a functioning command center, and the purpose is to help to get the right people together to facilitate effective decision making. Our command center has been meeting essentially for 7 days a week for many months now, but it began meeting 7 days a week, many times per day, and has switched to less frequently over the last few weeks as changes have slowed.
Great. And where is the command center, Kevin?
So the command center is physically located in B1. You can see Matt and Kelly in the command center right now. But we have quickly adopted a lot of virtual technology like Zoom to help support the command center functioning pretty much anywhere, with lots of people joining virtually every day.
Perfect. Now, can you tell us about how the hospital command center works during a pandemic?
Sure. During a pandemic, the command center is meant to be the main decision-making body for all aspects of the hospital's response. And so we've really centralized that for our response to COVID-19. The meetings actually started in January with a smaller group when we heard first from Dr. Jeff Powis about the concerns of a virus that was starting to spread throughout the world. And so really quickly, we did establish a smaller IMS group. And we had daily meetings to review the international status and make sure that our plans internally were up to speed with what was required. As things ramped up internationally and within Canada, we equally changed and evolved our command center structure to grow the group and to begin meeting 7 days a week and many times a day, depending on the day and the needs. The role of the command center really became a place where a lot of decisions were able to be made, and a lot of different working groups were able to bring information to actually ensure that the decisions that were being made were well considered across the organization, and the implications of the decisions were well thought out. And so examples of things like staff and patient screening were early decision points that had to come through the command center and were executed based on decisions that were made at the command center. I'd say a piece of our role has been making sure we document all of these decisions throughout, so that we're really clear about what decisions were made, and appreciating that they're all made with the best evidence at the time that we have available, but making sure that we're all aware of the reasons why they were made and who were the people that were consulted in making those decisions.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. I'm going to throw it over to the people in the command center, Matt and Kelly. So maybe you can describe what a typical day is like in our command center.
Yeah, for sure. And to help paint the picture, Kelly and I are here in the B1 conference room, which has been repurposed to serve as the COVID command center. So a typical day in command would start off with one of us providing both technical as well as administrative support to the executive control group, the Hospital Emergency Operations Center, or HEOC, as well as management meetings. And throughout the day, we follow up with the appropriate stakeholders to ensure that updates as well as daily priorities that were flagged at those morning meetings are being completed as well as communicated appropriately. We also receive, categorize, and reply to the many, many emails that come through the command inbox. These typically come from any number of people, from frontline staff to managers to directors to our external partners. Many of these communications, as you can imagine, are related to infection prevention and control questions and concerns, and we escalate these as appropriate to the IPAC team and Dr. Jeff Powis. In essence, I think that the most important functions of command include being the centralized place to receive questions, concerns, and issues, as well as a centralized place to disseminate this information across the organization, which we do in close partnership with our colleagues in corporate communications.
So in addition to the functions that Matt mentioned, the other portion of our role is really facilitating the meetings out of the physical command center. So during these meetings, one of us is in the room, primarily functioning as a scribe for the meetings. So we document key decisions that are made throughout the meeting. As you can imagine, there's a lot of conversation that takes place around the table. So our role is to clarify decisions that are made during these discussions, ensuring that everyone is in agreement and that there's consensus before we are formally documenting these decisions. We hold quite a unique role or a unique vantage point of all of the different work streams of the COVID-related work that's taking place across the organization, including things like internal capacity, outreach, all the PPE, acquisition and conservation work. So a lot of work streams with a lot of incredible work that's taking place. So our role with regards to these work streams is to prompt the leads to share updates about this work at the various meetings that are run out of command. So while there are elements that you can see of this role that are quite structured, as you can imagine, we really feel like there's no 2 days that are the same in the command center.
No, and your presence and expertise has been vital in our response.
Thank
And we've been in an incident management structure for a few months now, getting on for at least 3. Can you tell me how the command has changed over the last few months?
Yeah, of course. With regards to how command has changed over the past few months, I think we spent a lot of time, especially in early days, putting together processes and systems that enable us to be more organized and allow us to respond to questions in a more timely manner. So for example, some of these processes include organizing standing meetings with Dr. Powis to review and escalate any IPAC questions or concerns. We also started extensively documenting provincial guidance documents, but also MGH policy and procedure updates. So for example, we had versions 1, 2, and 3 of the essential visiting policy, which we've saved in our shared drive to ensure that we have that continuity moving forward. And finally, we've done things like stratify tasks between Kelly, me, and Lori and Kevin to ensure that there's one person who's the most responsible person when it comes to specific work items.
And just to build on what Matt just shared and what actually Kevin spoke of earlier, another change that we just sort of wanted to bring up relates to the cadence and really the content of our command meetings. So when command formally opened, which was back in March, we were holding executive control meetings twice a day, management meetings 3 times a week, and our Hospital Emergency Operations Center meeting, or our HEOC meetings, were 7 days a week at that point. And the focus really at the beginning there was really around planning. So later in April, the focus shifted more to operationalizing these plans. And as such, we scaled back on the number of meetings that we were holding per week. Most recently, as we were just saying, the province has directed hospitals to begin drafting recovery plans for how to safely open some of the services that they had closed at the onset of this pandemic. So we've introduced a new meeting every Wednesday centered around this recovery planning, which is called our HEOC Clinical. And in fact, we actually had our first HEOC Clinical meeting this morning. So that's really a snapshot of what the last 4 months looked like in command from our perspective. And both Matt and I are looking forward to seeing what the next 4 months will look like for us.
Yes, and I think we're all in this for a while longer, even if we are starting to inch our way towards some kind of new state, which we're doing very safely and very judiciously. Maybe over to Lori for a minute. What have you learned in your work in the command center? And is there anything that you think will inform our approach the next time we need to mount a response?
Yeah, we were actually reflecting on this as a group yesterday, and one of the themes that came out was around, particularly in the early days of our response, was around the theme of sort of speed over perfection. And so really trying to move quickly to put the right structure and roles and processes in place so that we could enable timely decision-making, issue management, planning, and so then support communication back out sort of from a centralized place internally and externally. And then it's sort of from there, and I think Kelly and Matt did a really nice job of sort of speaking to how Command has evolved over time and how we've just continued to sort of iterate and strengthen and sort of clarify roles and processes. The one thing that is, I think, unique with COVID-19 as an emergency in terms of our response is really the duration of it. With that, I think there's just a real need for us to continue to sort of reevaluate, be adaptable and flexible in our command center structure. And I would say pretty much on a weekly basis, internally and with exec, we have sort of a bit of a check-in on, is command meeting the needs of the organization, and how do we want to evolve that as we look into the weeks ahead. We are also starting the planning of a more formal evaluation of our response to COVID-19 so far, so that we could use these learnings to inform should we have a second wave, but also around opportunities for strengthening our command center operations in response to any future emergency situation.
That's great. And I would just add that an accreditation standard for healthcare facilities is to have a rigorous emergency management system in place, and usually you have to test it.
Exactly.
That's right.
There's no need to test it.
We will nail that standard.
We're good.
So just looking ahead a bit, what does the new normal look like, Lori, and how do you think the command center will have to shift over the coming months?
Yeah, and I think you touched on this, Sarah. I mean, no one has a crystal ball, but I think it's safe to assume that COVID will be with us for some time. And I think, our continuation of being adaptable and flexible and really probably acknowledging that COVID and our command center and our response to it will have to coexist with some of our other organizational priorities, like accreditation that you brought up, but also our preparations for moving into our new patient care tower. So it'll be, I think, just take some more sort of adaptability and creativity to consider sort of how do we continue to have a sort of robust and responsive response to COVID-19, but also to ensure that we're moving forward with other organizational priorities as well.
Great, thanks for that. And thanks to Kevin, Lori, Matt, and Kelly for all that you're doing. I obviously also spent a lot of time in the command center and have really enjoyed getting to know you all better, maybe better than you ever thought we'd have to get to know each other. The expertise you bring to our command center is absolutely vital in protecting our hospital, protecting our patients, protecting our staff, and protecting our community from COVID-19. And I sleep better at night knowing we're all in this together. So with that, thank you. And that's the end of the most recent 5 questions. We look forward to seeing you soon.